A close call with a watery grave, a royal tale of coincidence and death, and a daring escape from a murderer. Are these horrifying tales true? Or did we conjure them from the dark depths of our own imaginations? Join us as we find out what's fact or fiction.
The line that divides the factual from the unreal has long since blurred. The tales we once thought fantastical, now implanted as true. To decipher verity from the imagined, you must break from the ordinary and consider a universe where the outlandish prevails. Can you expand your mind to see beyond our perceived reality? Can you decide what's fact or fiction?
Being buried alive is most people's worst nightmare. But how about being buried alive 30 meters below the ocean's surface? For one Senegalese sailor, a routine job in the Atlantic Ocean turned from mundane to miraculous when he survived a wreck that killed all of his crewmates.
Peter Kaisa had everything to look forward to in life. He loved his job as a cook aboard a tugboat service, and he was due to marry a beautiful woman in just a few days. As he set out to board the boat on that fateful May morning, he thought to himself how lucky he was. The first day at sea was uneventful, and Peter spent his busy shift in the kitchen. It was the next morning at 4:30 a.m. that his life literally turned upside down. Peter was in the restroom when suddenly and seemingly without reason, the boat capsized. As the ship turned over, he was swept through the corridors by the icy Atlantic seawater as he desperately tried to cling on to anything he could. He ended up trapped in the toilet of an officer's cabin and could do nothing as the ship sank and came to rest on the ocean floor. Luckily for Peter, the water stopped rising in the tiny bathroom, and although he had hardly any food, water, or light, he had a small pocket of air that he thought would give him a couple of hours to await rescue. For the next 62 hours, Peter accepted his fate and waited for his oxygen to run out while listening to sharks and barracudas fighting over the remains of his dead crewmates. But his oxygen never did run out. And when he finally heard the recovery team, he hammered on the wall of the ship to let them know he had miraculously survived. Peter later discovered that he had his watery prison to thank for his survival. The intense atmospheric pressure 30 meters under the ocean's surface made the air denser, so it contained much more oxygen than it would have on land. After a stint in a decompression chamber, Peter was well enough to marry the love of his life right on schedule.
It's a known fact that diving at 30 meters can easily cause lasting damage after just 20 minutes. So how did Peter survive at that depth for 62 hours? Is it possible that a combination of his incredible will to live and the laws of physics saved his life? We'll let you know whether this is a true story in the reveal, but tell us what you think in the on-screen poll and in the comments section below. Next up is the unbelievable tale of a Spanish queen, an uncanny doppelganger, and an assassination.
Queen Maria Isabel Luisa de Bourbon was not a well-loved monarch, and all of Spain counted down the days until they could be freed of her violent moods and cruel punishments. But her people could never have known how bizarre the evil queen's final days would be. It was 1904, and Maria Isabel had visited a restaurant for dinner. During her meal, she noticed that the aging hostess looked familiar. After being summoned over, the hostess revealed that her name was also Maria Isabel, that she was also married to a man named Ferdinand, and that they had been born in the same neighborhood in Madrid. They also looked almost identical, apart from the stark and obvious difference in wealth. The queen was amazed at the coincidence, and her normally tough demeanor softened while in the company of the hostess. The next day, Queen Maria Isabel was preparing for a public event when she was told that the hostess had been gunned down on her way home from the restaurant the previous night. The shooting was brutal. The innocent restaurant worker suffered 3 shots in her back, and she died alone in the street. The Queen was inconsolable. The connection between the two women had been inexplicably strong, and she spent the morning sobbing in her quarters. Eventually, Maria Isabel gathered herself enough to make her way to the public event, and as she made her way out of the palace and to her car, as fate would have it, a lone assassin shot her. He hit her 3 times, and every bullet landed in her back. The Queen's final words were, "Maria Isabel," seemingly referring to the hostess.
Was the hostess's death a case of mistaken identity? It seems unlikely, considering the obvious difference in status and wealth, not to mention the fact that the Queen would never be walking the streets of Madrid alone. Is this tale too coincidental to be true? We'll tell you everything soon, so cast your vote in the on-screen poll. Finally, for our third and final tale, we have a story from the Australian Outback that will make you want to avoid ever being alone in the countryside again.
The Australian Outback is known around the globe as one of the most desolate places on Earth, and those making the trip across the huge expanse are not likely to see another human being on their entire journey. With temperatures reaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit in summer, it's not uncommon to hear stories of unprepared travelers succumbing to heat stroke and dehydration during long drives. 20 years ago, there was something much more dangerous and horrifying lurking in the Outback, as an American couple, Travis Daniels and Sandra Fields, found out. It was 1998, and the couple was traveling through Coober Pedy as part of a 3-month tour around Australia. The travel-loving pair had been saving for months and were on an extended vacation in their dream destination. The first month had gone smoothly, and as they drove their rented camper van towards the sunset, they chatted idly about their favorite moments from the trip so far. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the couple saw another vehicle flashing its lights behind them. Sandra was driving and slowed down to let the vehicle come alongside them. He approached the passenger window and told Travis that sparks were coming from their camper's exhaust. Travis got out and accompanied Stephen to the back of the van, and immediately Sandra heard a gunshot. In shock, she was still frozen in the driver's seat when Stephen came to her window with a gun pointed at her. He tied her up and threw her in the back of his 4x4 before going to deal with Travis's dead body. Sandra saw her opportunity to escape and made a run for the bush, where she waited for hours as Hardstark and his dog searched for her. Eventually, he gave up, and Sandra stayed hidden all night, terrified that he would come back and kill her too. The next morning at first light, she flagged down a passing driver who took her to safety.
This sounds like the plot of a film, and indeed it's similar to several Australian epics that you might have caught in your local movie theater. But are we retelling a Hollywood blockbuster or a real story of murder and survival? Each one of our tales is tough to believe, but are any of them actually true? Let's find out in the reveal.
Are you ready to find out if you can decipher between fact or fiction? Let's look back at tonight's 3 stories and find out which were born from reality and which were fabrications of the imagination.
First, we're going back to the icy depths of the Atlantic and to the miraculous survival of Peter Kaiser. Did he really survive in an air bubble for almost 3 days? Well, yes, he did. Nigerian chef Harrison Okini really did live to tell the tale that killed all of his crewmates, thanks to a combination of luck, science, and the human will to survive. Next, we visit 20th century Spain and the assassination of Queen Maria Isabel. We can tell you that Queen Isabella II certainly did exist, but that's where the truth ends, as the rest of this tale is entirely fictional. Our fictitious tale is loosely based on the assassination of King Umberto I of Italy and a strange conversation he had with a restaurant owner the night before his assassination. Finally, we're back in Australia for Sandra Fields' terrifying night of survival. Is this a true story or a film script? In fact, it's both. British couple Joanne Lees and Peter Falconio were attacked by Bradley Murdoch on their way to Darwin in 2001, and Joanne did indeed survive the ordeal that cost her boyfriend his life. You might recognize some of the details from the 2005 horror film Wolf Creek.
How well did you do in tonight's video? Did you look past the deception of our world and define the off-blurred line that struggles to separate lies from the truth? Let us know in the comment section below. And should you find the urge to test your perceptions again, be sure to subscribe and join us next time when we ask you to decide what's fact or fiction.